the European continent and across 3 nations of the UK. Indeed, vaccine passports are being rolled out, coupled with inflation rising across the world. Yet British shoppers have still been heading out to the high streets, and new figures show that is the case. GfK's long-running Consumer Confidence Index, which has just been published today, has shown that consumer confidence crept up in November as shoppers put aside their concerns in the run-up to Black Friday and Christmas. So why is this happening, and is our Christmas shopping going to get more expensive this year? I'm very pleased to be joined by the geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino, who has joined me in the studio. Marco, thank you very much for coming in. So I thought we'd start with a global overlook, first of all. What's happening globally in terms of consumer confidence?
If we take a step back, we look, 2020 was the year when COVID hit the world like a tsunami.
Yeah.
2021 is the year that the world generally turned the tide, principally through vaccines. 2022 is going to be the year when the world adapts to new realities, which have been dubbed by some as the new normal. Yeah. What exactly that means, no one knows. And there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that. And I think the bottom line is that if you look at inflation, it's one of the key elements. According to some, you listen to central bankers, they'll say the inflation is short term. You listen to other leading economists, they have diametrically opposing views.
Yeah.
So that's a key element, is about this question of inflation. And then also you have other issues of uncertainty is about, the future of the workplace. And then you have mandatory vaccines, like we see in a place like Austria, where the government has mandated compulsory vaccinations.
Whatever that means, Mark.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
And so when you look at all of this, and then you take into consideration, going back to your question about consumer confidence, I think right now, leading up to the holidays, consumer confidence is quite robust, because for many, this is the first Christmas they've had in 2 years.
Yeah.
Remember, the Christmas 2020 was one that many didn't celebrate. They were locked in their houses. So this is the one that's actually experienced it. But the question is that when come January, after the holidays, when generally you have the post-holiday blues, what actually happens? And they have to adapt to those adapt to the new realities, that quote-unquote new normal.
Yeah. So when I looked at the figures today, I thought, here's a positive story amongst, rising inflation, rising interest rates, possible COVID restrictions again. And then I thought, are people going out earlier to do their Christmas shopping? Is that why we've seen a rise in consumer confidence?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, what happens, obviously, you have supply chain disruptions, which as a result, the consumers have been encouraged via the media to begin their shopping early.
Yeah.
And in Europe, Western Europe, you see also in the United States, that actually has begun. The numbers, people started shopping as early to mid-October, and that will keep going on to ensure that they have the gifts for their loved ones during the holidays. Yeah. But the question is that level of consumer confidence, like I was saying before, is what happens in January?
Well, that's what I was going to say to you, because there's only a finite amount of money that a household has, and if they spend it earlier in October and November, what does that mean then for December sales and indeed into January?
I think as we head into the new year, each country, generally speaking, there's a general consensus, I think, that there will be a level of uncertainty leading at least the first quarter of 2022. I think as you approach the second quarter, I think there'll be much more certainty in terms of where things are heading.
Yeah.
But as you go, it's like you're going up towards the Christmas holiday, and then come January, you go down. I think that's pretty much the consensus of that. Yeah. But the question is, at what point does it stabilize?
Yeah. Well, January is always a quiet month for hospitality and things like that, but often people leave their big purchases to January. But I was interested that some of the big ticket items are actually being bought now as well. It's not just, retail, it's actually some of the bigger ticket items. Is that something new?
I mean, I would say for example, look at the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Certain times of the year, the automotive industry is lower than others. But if we look at the supply chain disruptions, the motor in the industry, that's impacting the costs. And many, when they're planning within the automotive industry, for example, if you look at Chevrolet, just one small example, many of the cars that they were constructing with heated seats, they stopped production in certain vehicles and certain models because they don't have the microchips. So as a result of that, that's going to lead to an entire new approach whereby Ford, Chevrolet, they're cutting their own deals directly with the chip makers, and Ford is actually trying to bring that entire process in-house.
Yeah.
So this is all issues about supply chains, and at what point does this whole uncertainty When does it end and things stabilize?
Well, interestingly, in Northern Ireland, where I'm from, they've decided today to make an announcement that people should work from home if they can. Now, surely that's going to have an impact on our town centres and our city centres in terms of retail confidence.
Sure. The future of the workplace, the general consensus, once again, it's going to be a hybrid,
yes.
quote unquote. What does hybrid mean? How many days a week? If you're working, say, for example, look at Apple. Apple announced it on February. It pushed back its date for everyone to come back to the office. They've pushed it back to February 1st. And I think part of that is they're still trying to question, how does this hybrid model, how does it exactly happen? And people, look at taxing, for example. If you want to work remotely, if you're working in a place that has a lower standard of living, lower costs, maybe your salary is going to be changed according to that.
You've got more disposable income, I suppose, if that's the case. Marco, thank you so much for coming in. That's very interesting.